Yep. All right. Priya study. Priyansh, good. Mega, you can put in the
I'm
emote.
also good because I can see your screen, so I'll
All
just
right.
follow that.
All right. All right. Okay. Priyansh, why don't you read the Sanskrit shloka 7.25?
Bhagavad Gita 7.25.
Yeah, the Sanskrit.
Naham Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavratah Mudhoyam Nabhi Janati Loko Mam Ajam Avyayam.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Priya, can you read the translation for me, please?
Translation. Nor aham, I, Prakasa, manifest, Sarvasya, to everyone, Yogamaya, by eternal potency, Samvartaha, covered, Mudaha, foolish, Ayam, these, not, Avijanati, can understand, Loka, persons, Mam, me, Ajam, unborn, Avyayam, inexhaustible.
Thank you. Mega, can you read the translation for me, please? This part.
I am never manifest to the foolish and intelligent. For them I am covered by my eternal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible.
All right. Thank you very much. So before we begin the class, what we usually do is we read out a bunch of prayers, just to offer our respects to our senior acharyas and pay a tribute for the knowledge that they passed on. If you guys wonder where these prayers are coming from, if you have the physical Bhagavad Gita, if you go on the introduction part, you should see it starts with Om Ajnanatimmirandasya. That's the introduction. You go on the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, you'll see the prayers and also the meaning given. So in your free time, you can go through the meaning. For now, I'll just quickly do the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurunmitilam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Deni Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuta eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. All right, thank you everyone. Okay, let's begin. Megha, can you read the first paragraph?
It may be argued that since Krishna was visible to everyone when he was present on this earth, how can it be said that he is not manifest to everyone? But actually, he was not manifest to anyone. When Krishna was present, there were only a few people who could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the assembly of Kurus, when Sisupala spoke against Krishna's being elected president of the assembly, Bhishma supported him and proclaimed him to be the supreme god. Similarly, the Pandavas and a few others knew that he was the supreme, but not everyone. He was not revealed to the non-devotee and the common man. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that but for his pure devotees, all men consider him to be like themselves. He was manifest only to his devotees as the reservoir of all pleasure, but to others, to unintelligent non-devotees, he was covered by his internal potency.
Thank you so much. So, before we get started, what does religion actually mean? Like when we come to think about it, Most people we see today, in the name of religion, they're just blindly following a bunch of traditions without knowing the meaning, just to give them that sort of satisfaction that I'm very religious. I'm following certain things, I'm dressing in a particular way, I'm eating this food, I'm not eating this food, I'm going to this particular place of worship. We are all doing these particular traditions, but nobody actually understands or is able to interpret the meaning behind this, or to understand God, which is the purpose behind all religion. We are so busy in our life, especially using the garb of modern science. We over analyze things, we overthink things, we try to go deeper and deeper in the name of scientific research to find out the purpose behind creation, and come up with some logical explanation. But none of us really understand what God is, and very few of us actually have seen God. Most of us think it's actually like if you say to someone that I want to see God, most of the other person will think that you're out of your mind. It's not logical. Seeing God is almost impossible. We don't even consider the fact that God can actually be interpreted. One can have a personal relationship with God. So that is one myth that we are continuously completely lost with, because we are busy over analyzing things. How many of you know Sherlock Holmes? Sherlock Holmes? Yep, Sherlock Holmes. So Sherlock Holmes and Watson, who was sort of his like sidekick, once they're out for camping, and they had set up a nice, beautiful tent. It was nighttime. The stars were out in the sky, and they had gone for a little walk. By the time they came back, the place where they had set up the camp, they lied on the grass and they were watching. And Sherlock Holmes asked Watson that, "Hey, Watson," they both were looking at the sky, it was full of stars. Sherlock Holmes asked Watson that, Watson, what do you see? And Watson started with, I see stars and I see how the stars are aligned in a particular way. And because of this, the planetary motions are going to go in such and such. So Sherlock Holmes says, okay, okay, what else do you see? He says, oh, these stars are actually balls of energy and gas, and they're passing this chemical and that chemical, and this is how they're created, and the light is following. He gave like a very scientific reasoning. He said, okay, what else do you see? And then Watson went on. He said, we are causing light pollution and air pollution. That's why there's so many stars that we're actually unable to see. And the combustion is leading to, our vision getting blocked. And he went on with some scientific explanation. He went on for quite a long time trying to give one scientific interpretation after the other, explaining what he saw. And then finally, Watson asked Sherlock Holmes that, okay, Sherlock Holmes, what do you see? And Sherlock Holmes smiles at Watson and says, I see that somebody has stolen a tent. So the moral of the story is that we are so busy trying to find such big, we are trying to over analyze and over interpret things so much that we miss out on the subtle things, on the basic things that are right in front of us. We completely lose, sight of it. All of us in today's society are running behind some degree or the other. PhD, MSc, BSc, everybody wants to get some degree after the other. We are trying to run after some scholarship, some sort of educational stamp that we can put on ourselves and be very proud that we are so qualified, we are so knowledgeable. But nobody stops and asks the very basic questions, which are very absolutely crucial for understanding life. That who are we? What is this world around us? What is my purpose in this world? Is there a creator? Is there a God? And if so, how do I see him? How do we interpret God? Nobody stops and asks this. People are busy collecting more and more titles and accolades for themselves. Oh, I'm a graduate from this university and I've done this degree and this law and this and that. And nobody is asking the basic questions. And these so-called scholars are supposed to have the answers to everything, but they can't even ask the very basic essential questions that every living being needs answered, especially in this human life. When we try to find God, however, we all have some sort of personal relationship with God, even though we know it or we may not know it. But deep down, there is a personal relationship with God. But the problem is, the reason why God isn't so easily understandable by us is we constantly try to cheat God. I remember one more story where there was a man who was trying to ask, he asked around his village that, where can I see God? Where can I find God? Where can God hear my prayers? And somebody said, you go climb up the mountain. When you go on the top, since you're on a height, You can talk loudly and God can hear you. So he followed that direction. He climbed up the mountain. He went to the absolute top and he screamed in the sky, "Hey, God, are you there?" And God says, "Yes, my son, I'm here." So he asked God, "God, what is a what is a couple of what is millions of years in your time?" And he says, "Oh, millions of years? It's just a couple of moments for me." Then he asks, "God, what is millions of dollars for you?" And the God replies, "Oh, it's just a cent." So the guy asks God, "God, can you give me a cent?" And God says, "Yep, just wait for a moment." So God is, we try to cheat God throughout. We always try to, use one tactic or the other. We're always having some sort of business transaction with God. Yo, God, you give me this and I'll give you that. We are always having a condition approach with God, but none of us are actually making the attempt and the endeavor to actually understand and manifest God. Now, since if any, I'm guessing all of you have probably read Bhagavad Gita at least a little bit, and God, at least this basic idea that God is saying very clearly that he's eternal, he's unborn. So God has no God is the source of all creation, and he's eternal. He goes on for infinity. There's no limit to him. He's unlimited. So one may ask, if God is eternal and if he's unlimited, he's omnipresent, then why doesn't everyone see him? For example, when we see the Krishna Leela, the Krishna had descended on the earth 5,000 years ago. We might say that since Krishna was the supreme personality of Godhead himself, he had descended on earth. Why wasn't everybody able to interpret him as God? The world should have been completely torn apart by seeing God himself descending to this earth. Why do we see that in spite of Krishna being the supreme personality of Godhead, there were demons who attacked him when he went, for Yudhishthira's sacrifices in the court in front of everybody? Shishupal, who was nothing but the cousin of Krishna, insulted him in front of the entire court. You would say that if Krishna was God and he was present to everybody, everybody could understand and interpret the fact that this is God standing in front of me. Why was he treated like this? Why was this going on? Why was some people giving him so much respect and some people unable to even see? They saw him just as a cowherd boy. Because we don't understand that God reserves the right to reveal himself. Just because God comes, he doesn't necessarily show the entire world that he's God. It's a privilege. You need to be qualified to understand that you're God. Only a pure devotee can interpret that it was God. Like, for example, in the quote that I was just talking about in Yudhishthira's sacrifice, that time when Shishupal was insulting Krishna because the Yudhishthir was trying to establish Krishna as the supreme Lord. He was trying, after that sacrifice, Krishna's position would have been established throughout the entire world as the supreme. And Shishupala was very upset with that because Shishupala's to-be wife, Rukmani, actually was escaped and got married to Krishna. So he was very envious of Krishna throughout. He had a lot of hatred for Krishna. And in the court, he just blindly started insulting Krishna. That what, you give this cowherd boy this sort of elevated position. There's such high elevated demigods right in front of us. There's Shiva, there's Lord Brahma. Why is this cowherd boy, this ordinary butter-stealing cowherd boy given this sort of position? And he started throwing one insult after the other. But Bhishma Pitama, who was a very devout devotee of the Lord, he completely, chastised Shishupal. He said, "Can't you see that's the supreme Lord? He's the Paramatma in everyone's heart. How can you insult him like that?" So we see there's a lot of discrepancy. Like, somebody is here insulting him and somebody is giving a complete opposite reaction. And that is because Krishna was manifest to each of them individually. Krishna reserves the right who he wants to reveal. There is no shortcut in seeing God. We are trying to find some shortcut or the other to see God. In the process, we are trying to trick God, not realizing that we in the process are getting tricked ourselves. God says, "Amongst the cheaters, I am gambling," which basically he's trying to establish the fact that there's nobody who can cheat God. If you think you can outsmart God, God will always find a way to outsmart you. There's nobody who's successfully been able to cheat their way and interpret God. It's not possible. So, why is it that Krishna is not present as God for everybody? This is because he is covered by Yoga Maya. So he says, Yoga Maya Samavritaha. Yoga Maya, his internal potency, is covering him. So, for example, just because it's sunrise, the sun is coming out, but it's a cloudy day, you won't be able to physically see the sun, but that does not mean that the sun does not exist. The sun is still rising, the sun is still there, but it's covered by the cloud. Only one who's qualified can actually interpret God. One needs to be qualified. For example, if Mega says tomorrow that I want to see the Prime Minister of Australia, I want to see Anthony Albanese, show it to I go and tell her that the Prime Minister of Australia is Anthony Albanese, and she absolutely argues with me. She's like, "What? I don't believe it. Just because you say you want me to believe it, just because you say that he's the Prime Minister, you expect me to believe it. I need to see. Show me him. Show him to me right now. I want to see Anthony right now." But the question is, are we qualified? We can't just get up and say, I want to see the president of United States, and he will just come in front of us. We need to have some sort of qualification. We need to have some sort of position before we can see it. We can't just say that, oh, I don't believe what you're saying, so hence it's not true. People say blind faith is bad. I would also argue that blind doubt is bad. For example, you're in an airplane and the pilot announces that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going through a little bit of turbulence. Please fasten your seatbelts as we're going to have a rough journey ahead. And if you just argue that I don't believe it, just because he's saying it does not mean that it's true. Why do I believe him? And you are arrogant and ignorant. It's not going to work. If somebody is saying it with some sort of authority, we need to at least accept it as the truth. Now, this being said, God is there, but we need to cultivate certain attitude before God can be present before us. God can actually manifest himself for us. God doesn't manifest into anyone who's arrogant, ignorant, who's using trying to work day and night to deny his existence. Like so many so-called material scholars, they get these big degrees. I was seeing this professor from Harvard. He was giving such nonsense in the name of spirituality. He was saying that actually there's no such thing as consciousness. There's just electric, like we just happen to be some molecules that have got some sort of electric spark, and all of a sudden this human body is there, and when this spark dies out, it's the end. There's no other consciousness. And there's no God. We are just in a ball of nothing that's rotating around the sun due to gravitational pull, and everything just happened through coincidence, and it was a big bang and all. And we see that science is never even consistent. Like around 500 years ago, people believed that the earth was the center and all the planets rotated around it. Now they're saying that the sun is the center and all the planets are rotating around it. When I was a kid, I was told that Pluto was a planet. Now they've denied that Pluto is not a planet. Today, I've even come to know that now currently they're even denying Big Bang theory. They're going with some different sort of theory. They're saying that the polarization, like they've got a heat chart of the universe, and they're saying that the polarization between the tips are equal, and they are giving completely absurd explanations behind it. They are unable. Science doesn't give you a verified statement. It gives you predictions like this may be the truth. Even Charles Darwin, after writing his entire Charles Darwin theory of evolution, he says none of these he doesn't have any certified resource. He's all of this is assumption. He saw a bunch of fossils and he made the assumption that this is where they might have originated from. So we see science is not consistent, and these so-called scholars very blatantly they deny God, but they don't realize that to see God, one needs to be qualified. One needs to have some sort of qualification. One cannot just make such sort of statements and then expect that God will all of a sudden be present before you. God doesn't have self-confidence issue that you will say, I don't believe that God is there, so hence God is not there. And God will be like, oh my God, this person doesn't think that I'm there. Oh, let me appear in front of him. Seeing God, having darshan of God is a very big thing. It's the purpose of human life, is what according to our scriptures. This entire purpose of human life is we are given the ability to interpret and actually have darshan of Lord, but we need to build up that certain type of qualification. Krishna reserves the right to reveal himself, and if we see it throughout, even in his pastimes, I'll give you one more example just to make it more simple for you. to understand God and his pastimes and his activities and his knowledge, one needs to have a certain cultivate the knowledge over time. For example, Priyansh is watching a football match, but Priyansh has no idea what the sport football is at all. He has no idea what is the goal, what is a football, what is a goalkeeper, what is the net. He has no idea. He's just somebody has turned on the TV and he's watching. If you have no idea of what is going on, you won't be able to appreciate it when somebody scores a goal, when there's some good thing, some interesting moment going on in the match. You won't be able to appreciate or understand it because you have not cultivated the knowledge. For example, even in like India, you have those traditional dances where Bharatnatyam, for example, each step is representing some sort of story. Where, like for example, the dancer might do this, and they're representing goddess Durga or Kali. They're doing some Shiv Tandav. But if somebody has no idea of what all this is, he won't be able to appreciate the talent and the skill that is being displayed in front of him. Similarly, if we have never cultivated the knowledge and made an effort to understand what the Lord is, what his pastimes actually are, then we are unable to appreciate it. That's why you see so many people, even today, they believe that Krishna was just an ordinary human being, and all of his pastimes were just happened to be. It was a made up folk tale, and I've heard all sorts of stories. He was a philanthropist. All sorts of stories are being made up. Why? Because they've never made the effort to actually cultivate the knowledge that is required to actually understand God's pastime, to understand the transcendental nature of God's pastime. Each and every pastime of his is absolutely nourishing for the soul. It's elevating the soul because from each of his pastimes, you can understand the Lord's higher intention, the Lord's plan. Now, let's see. Priya, can you read? Yep. Can you read till this part, till account? Also, Tapendra, can you turn on your camera? Or are you at work also today? I think he's at work because he had joined last week as well. He had his camera off because he was at work. Anyways, yeah, Priya, you can continue. I think a camera froze. Priyansh, can you read it? I think a camera froze or there's some network issue. You can read Priyansh this in the prayers of Priya. Is your camera working? You froze for a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. Lord is covered by the curtain of Yoga Maya, and thus ordinary people cannot understand him. This Yoga Maya curtain is also confirmed in the Isopanishad, Mantra 15, in which the devotee prays, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasya Hitam Mukham Tattavam Pusan Apavranu Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. Oh my Lord, you are the maintainer of the entire universe, and devotional service to you is the highest religious principle.
Yeah, that's good enough. I think there's some issue with your audio because it was breaking a lot. But yeah, we can just stop for here and then I'll go on with a bit of further explanation, then we can continue.
Okay.
All right. So where was we? Now, how many of you, okay, I'll ask you guys a question. What do you know about Krishna and his pastimes? Can you just tell me one pastime of Krishna, anything that comes to mind? Priyansh, you're Gujarati, so you better know some pastime of Krishna.
A lot.
Tell me one, your favorite one.
Yashoda Maya fainting after seeing the whole universe in the mouth.
Wow, very good. That's also a very beautiful pastime. Megha, any pastime of Krishna that you know?
Maybe like the one of stealing like the makhan or like the butter.
Yes, Makhan Chor, classic. Priya, favorite pastime of Krishna?
The Rasalila dance with the gopis.
Rasalila dance with the gopis, again, very beautiful. So you see all these pastimes, even though it happened 5,000 years ago, so many acharyas and great saints have written so many commentaries on it. They relish these pastimes again and again. Srila Prabhupada himself, when he used to go to Vrindavan, whenever there used to be some sort of Krishna Katha going on, he used to sit down and even though he literally wrote an entire book of 700 pages on each and every pastime of Krishna's stories, he's written multiple times about Krishna stories. That should give you a fair idea that he has a lot of knowledge about Krishna and his pastimes. Even though he had so much knowledge and he knew all these stories and he probably said it 1,000 times and listened to it even more, every time he used to go to Vrindavan and somebody used to do some sort of Krishna Katha, he would sit and like a child he used to just enjoy those stories. He used to relish it. When there was when they were talking about how he defeated Bakasur, Prabhupada used to clap his hands and say that serves that demon right. And like a child, when they used to talk about him stealing butter or Yashodam Miya tying him, doing the Damodar Liya, tying him to a butter churning pot, he used to completely relish it each and every moment because he understood that Krishna is on the absolute platform and there is no difference between him, his form, his name, and his pastimes. Each and every pastime, just by listening to Krishna's pastimes again and again, our heart gets purified. Why? Because since we discussed over here, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. Krishna is saying Naham, Aham means I. Prakash, I don't manifest to Sarvasya, everyone. Yoga Maya Samavritaha, that my internal potency, my Yoga Maya blocks it. It's like a curtain. If somebody puts a curtain, you cannot see what's on the other end. So my Yoga Maya blocks it for ordinary people or non-devotees. Mudo Yam Nabi Janati. That means these fools, these foolish people who, in the name of material scholarship, are very proud of their accolades and try to give some sort of misguided representation or understanding of Lord. Loko mam ajam avyam, which means that loko, these people don't know mam, me. They don't know that I ajam am. Ajam means unborn and avyayam is inexhaustible. If you see any photo of Krishna, you never see an old depiction of Krishna. Either you'll see Laddu Gopal form where he's a kid, he's stealing butter, he's sitting, he's, all the baby Krishna, or else you'll see a child form of Krishna where he's playing around with the cowherd boys, or you'll see a slightly younger Krishna where he's playing around with the gopis, and then you'll see Krishna in his full youth during the Mahabharata. In the Bhagavad Gita also, you'll see Krishna. He looks around very young. He looks around that he was in his 20s. Do you know what was Krishna's age actually when he was fighting when he was in the when he was giving the Bhagavad Gita in the Mahabharata? What was Krishna's age? Anybody can take a guess. He was almost, I could be wrong, but definitely around this. He was around 150 years old, Krishna. And if you see the photo, even on the Bhagavad Gita, you see the photo. He looks like he's probably 24, 25, 26 at best. He looks very young. The reason that our acharyas give is because Krishna is inexhaustible. Even though he's eternal, he's Adi Purusham, he's the first being in this universe, he's the origin of everything. He's inexhaustible. There is no end to his energies. His energies never die out. It's continuously going to go on, and his energies come in the form of his pastimes as well. When somebody reads his pastimes, a pure devotee especially can see the transcendental nature behind his pastimes, and therefore they can relish it. They can feel the presence of Krishna in his pastimes as well. But like a non-devotee, an atheistic person, a so-called materialistic scholar, he will give some sort of interpretation of the pastime that, oh, he was actually a regular person, even though he performed such great feats. Everybody in Vrindavan used to worship Krishna. They knew that he was the supreme personality of Lord, and even if they had some sort of doubt, Krishna performed such pastimes that they no doubt was left. He picked up the Govardhan hill on his pinky finger. He danced on Kali, the Nag, Kali Nag, and he performed such great feats. He literally inhaled the entire forest fire. He expanded himself as all the cowherds and cows when Lord Brahma tried to hide them just to test Krishna's potency. He performed one great feat after the other. He defeated great, powerful demons like Keshi, Putana. So one might ask that if everybody saw that the Lord was performing such powerful pastimes, then why did these demons still, attack him? Why did they still try to harm him, damage him? Didn't they know that it was the Paramatma, the Supreme Lord himself? Why did they bother doing all of this? This is because Krishna hid himself with his internal potency, his Yoga Maya Shakti. So for them, he was just an ordinary human. For Kangs, he just saw him as the eighth child of Devaki. For Shishupal, he just saw him as the person who took his potential wife Rukmani. For all the atheists, for Duryodhan, he just saw him as a regular cowherd person or cowherd boy. So these people, the atheists, the non-devotees, they weren't able to, even though he was omnipresent, he was physically there, they weren't able to understand that he was actually the Supreme Lord. Only the pure devotees, Yashoda Mai, Nanda Maharaj, anybody, Arjuna, Bhishma Pitama, all of them, Kunti Devi, they were all very pure devotees of the Lord. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, over here it said prayers of Kunti Maharani, when Krishna, she's offering these prayers to Krishna, she is, if you see the prayers, she's a very self-realized person. She gives up such detailed knowledge about well, the Supreme Lord, such perfect knowledge that it's very clear that she is a self-realized person, and she's a very pure devotee of the Lord. She actually begs the Lord that please don't give me any sort of material benefit, don't give me any sort of material boon, because only when a person has got some sort of distress, they remember you. These distresses actually help me to be more connected with you, even though throughout her life she was facing one distress after the other. Her husband Pandu died, her children were put in a house of lac and they were burned and they had to escape. They were in forest for such a long time, one distress after the other. Throughout their life they didn't get a moment of peace, but throughout that, in spite of all of that, Kunti Devi, the mother of the Pandavas, requests Krishna that you please give me more and more difficulties in life, because only in these difficulties, when I go through these difficulties, I am able to remember you. I'm able to do smaran of you more. If I was in anybody who's materially benefited, who's very comfortable, they don't remember the Lord. Like I'll ask, I personally, and I can ask all of you also, when everything is going good, how many of us actually think, oh, let me remember the Lord now? We don't remember it. We are just busy enjoying our, material benefits that we've got. It's only in times of distress that even the biggest atheist becomes a religious person. Like I had one friend in college who was a very hardcore atheist. He used to give me scientific interpretations that no, there's nothing called God. Everything has happened by this. He used to give me some sort of explanation. And once we were on a flight and there was some sort of turbulence, and he was sitting next to me, and the turbulence happened and his stomach had some blood rushing in, and he started reading the Hanuman Chalisa next to me. I said, hey, weren't you an atheist? What happened to all your fancy logic and all? Whenever there's some sort of danger, whenever there's some sort of distress, automatically we start remembering the Lord. So that's, we can understand how pure a devotee she is. And to her, Krishna was omnipresent. Even to the gopis, when Krishna had left Vrindavan and gone to Dwarka, the gopis were still even more connected to Krishna now that he was physically not there, because they were constantly remembering him. Because Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is present as Paramatma in our heart. So even by remembering him, we are in contact with him. We are he is it's almost like he's physically present with us. So the gopis were actually more connected with Krishna when he was not physically present. That just goes to show you the differentiation that Krishna makes between his devotees and non-devotees. Non-devotees, Duryodhana, he was in his court, he was right in front, he was literally, he even took up his Vishnu Roop. When Duryodhan told his soldiers to arrest Krishna and put him in the prison, Krishna took on his four-armed Vishnu Roop with the Shankar, Chakra, Gada and Padma, and he was in front of everyone. But even then, Duryodhan was so much in ignorance and covered by Yoga Maya that in spite of all of that, he denied Krishna to be the Supreme Lord. He just saw him as an ordinary person. When they went to, when you, who was it, Arjuna and Duryodhan went went to ask Krishna for their army, Yudhishthir had given instructions to Arjun that you ask Krishna for his army, because the Kauravas are in large number. We could really benefit if we have his Narayana Sena, Krishna's army, on our side. But Arjuna, he was a pure devotee and he knew the potency of Lord Krishna. So he sat at the feet of Krishna and he said, Lord, I don't want your army. I just want you to fight with him. Because he knew for a fact that if Krishna is on my side, if the Supreme Lord is on my side, there is no defeat. Now, the point of me telling you all of this is to show you that for a pure devotee, the Supreme Lord's identity is always very blatantly shown. It's very present. But to a non-devotee, it is always covered. A pure devotee always sees the Supreme Lord as the reservoir of all pleasure. He is Satchit Ananda. He's eternal, full of bliss and of truth. People who are unable to interpret the Lord, they are in delusion, they are in illusion, they are in Maya, which is the untruth. Maya is like a mirage. You might think that a mirage is very real. It looks very real, but when you go and actually get it, you realize it was all false in the first place. Similarly, us, the people who are, so absorbed in this material world, we think that by getting this better job, by getting this money, by getting this car, by getting this wife, by getting these materialistic things that we always are so always hankering about, and we are desperately trying to get, by getting this we'll be happy, but we are actually in false, we are in asat, we are in illusion, we are in Maya. And when we get this, we are suffering even more, because now we don't get it and we are now burning in frustration. If we get it, we are burning in greed. There's always some sort of pain involved, but the Lord is opposite to this. And the second thing in this material world is everything is temporary. Everything comes and goes. This body is also temporary. One day it's going to leave. Everything, they say your money, you can't take your money to your grave. Money is very frivolous. It comes and goes. Even if you think today I have a lot of money, it's either going to be your kids who in the name of will try to take your money, or your wife, or somebody. You see, so Jeff Bezos got divorced and his wife took like half of his wealth from him. Then the tax man is behind you. Money is very frivolous. It can come and go. We try to hold on to it, and it never stays. Money cannot permanently be there, and even if it's there, there's only up to a certain point you can enjoy it. There's a good saying that when you're youth, the three most important things is health, money, and time. When you're youth, young person, you have health, you have a lot of time, but you ain't got no money. When you're in middle age, you've got money, you've got health, but you don't have time. You're busy collecting more and more and more. And when you're old, when you're retired, when you have a lot of money in the Swiss bank, you have a lot of time because you're retired, but you've got poor health, so you can't even enjoy it. So throughout our life, even though we desperately try to enjoy these material things, we are never able to actually enjoy it, because material wealth or dhana is never permanent, and we are constantly running behind this and completely ignoring the Sat Chit Ananda nature of Lord, the eternal, blissful, truthful state of the Lord, which is the actual hankering of all of us. The soul actually is looking for Krishna. The pleasure that the person is looking in the bottle of alcohol, the pleasure that person is looking with a higher job title, is actually in Krishna. Once somebody finds Krishna, they get Atma Shanti, they get internal peace. Why? Because Krishna is the blissful. He's the reservoir of all pleasures. He's Ananda. So what is the thing, how do we get this qualification? I mentioned that you need to be qualified, like you want to see the prime minister, you need to have some sort of qualification. So what is this qualification that we need to cultivate? Now I spoke about dhana, which is wealth, which is temporary. It's always coming and going. One day you might be wealthy, one day you may not be. But the one wealth which is going to be eternal, which is the entire purpose of this human life, which is what we are given this body to cultivate, that is sadhana. Sadhana means our spiritual practices, because sadhana is eternal. Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, like Arjuna asked Krishna that what if somebody is performing very difficult yogic austerities, yogic practices, but he's unable to fulfill it in his current life. He dies in the middle, something happens, untimely death. What happens to all that effort he put, all that spiritual acumen that he was trying to collect? Krishna says that that's not an issue. There's no loss, because this person, in the next life he starts from where he stopped in the previous life. You'll see all of a sudden somebody is born in a very, a family of Brahmins basically means intellectual people and an environment that is good to cultivate God consciousness. They start this even happens with material things. If somebody is working very hard in their life to become a great football player, but they are unable to complete it in this life, in the next life you'll see child prodigy, 5 years old, they start playing amazing. Why? Because their past life credit has been added to this life. This is all Krishna says, that an effort never goes wasted. Whatever effort you put, it will, even if you're unable to get the results in this life, in the next life you'll get the fruits. But the problem is we don't want to have another life, because another life means again going through the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So we cultivate spiritual practices. What do spiritual practices do? It helps us to see the Satchit Ananda form of Krishna, the eternal form of blissful and knowledge of Krishna. And when somebody has darshan of that, he is liberated, he is free from the cycle of birth and death. A fun fact: when Kams was killed, even though Kams was a very evil king, he killed seven sons of Devaki. He was completely unpious, irreligious. Throughout his life, he did nothing but sinful activity. But at the end of the time of his death, he had darshan of Krishna. He had direct darshan of Krishna. And Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita that anybody who has darshan of, anybody who remembers me at the time of death, he without doubt he attains my abode, my eternal abode. So our job is to cultivate such sort of yogic practice, spiritual acumen, that we are able to physically have darshan of the Lord. And how do we do this? By sadhana. And sadhana comes only from either the Lord or a representative of the Lord. Representative of the Lord is a guru. And for us, we are very fortunate that we have Srila Prabhupada, who gave us this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee who comes from a bona fide disciplic succession. If you trace his guru, if you go up, you'll see the knowledge is directly coming from Krishna or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's an incarnation of Krishna. So all this knowledge comes either from the Lord himself or through his bona fide representative, a guru. And what are these sadhana that we are told to cultivate? So in our sampradaya, the Gaudiya Vaishnava sampradaya, we are told that chanting the name of the Lord. So basically there are 5 stages of sadhana that we can do. And the first one, and it's recommended in almost all sampradayas, even in other religions as well, is chanting the name of the Lord, because the Lord is on the absolute platform. What does absolute platform mean? We need to understand what is relative platform first. Supposing Priya wants to drink Coca-Cola, she can't sit here and say Coca-Cola, 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 and suddenly get the taste of Coca-Cola. Why? Because there needs to be an actual substance or matter, which is Coca-Cola, which satisfies your need. But for Krishna, he is absolute. So that means that his name, his pastime, his knowledge, his deity, everything is equal to Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna, for the people who are unable to cultivate that sort of devotional service, he comes in the form of deity. So he, in this age, in Kali Yuga, where a person is defined by short age, bad intelligence, low memory, always quarreling, always mentally disturbed, Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it very easy to do his smaran, to remember him, to have his darshan. And what is that? By chanting of his holy names: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. The holy name is very attractive to the Lord. Anybody who chants the holy name, they don't even realize how much benefit that they're getting, how purifying it is to the heart. The Lord is very attractive. There are millions of pastimes where somebody has just chanted the name of the Lord once and they've immediately reached Lord's abode. Ajamila, who entire life he did nothing but impious activities. At the time of death, he was calling out his son, who was named Narayan. He said, Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. He wasn't even intentionally trying to call out the Lord's name. But at the time of death, when he was to be given he was supposed to, based on his karmas, being given a body to suffer his consequences. Since he chanted the name of Narayana, he was spared. The Vishnu Dutas came and they spared him. And then later on, he went and performed penances and eventually attained the kingdom of God. So we see that this Ajamila, who just chanted the name of Lord once, was given so much benefit. So what to say of person who has spent their entire life chanting? That's why all the acharyas, all the spiritual leaders, all of them are emphasizing on the fact of chanting the holy names of Lord. Even in other religions, we see this. I see a Muslim person during the time of Eid, he has a counter like something like this, and I don't know, yeah, something like this. My camera is blocking it out because of the filter that I put it, but okay, yeah, this is annoying. But basically, if you see, it's a counter, and during the time of Eid, he used to continuously chant his Lord's name. So the Lord is non-different to his name. You continuously chant the name of Lord with, however, with sincerity and humility. That is the very important thing. You know, Chaitanya Prabhu, Mahaprabhu says, who had given us this benediction of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he says, त्रिनादपि सुनिचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानेन मानदेन Kirtaniya Sadari, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that you have given us this benediction by investing all your transcendental energies in your holy names like Krishna and Govinda or the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And by chanting these names, one can purify the heart and get rid of lifetimes of sins, birth of sins that we accumulated. You know, there's so many sins that we subconsciously do. We don't even know that we're committing sins, but we are committing so many sins. And imagine, through millions and millions of births, we have been committing these sins. So how many sins we have collected? So to attain the kingdom of God, one has to be completely pure. And when someone chants this holy name of the Lord, all these sins are wiped out. Krishna completely eradicates all these sins. That's how merciful he's to us in this age of Kali. We simply need to chant the holy name of Krishna. So that is the first step of devotional service. And what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says is, Trinadapi Sunichana. One should chant the holy name in a humble state of mind, offering all respects to others and expecting no respect from others. We should not think that, oh, I'm chanting or I'm a Krishna Bhakt or I'm going to the temple, so 10 people should sit and clap for me. Wow, look at me, I'm such a great devotee. We should always be humble and we should always be sincere. Humility and sincerity are the two most important ingredients that we require if we want to even think about having darshan of Krishna. Otherwise, we can forget about it. If we are arrogant, if we are, negligent, if we are disrespectful to others, don't expect like you'll get any benediction. Even if you're chanting the holy name, you must cultivate that nature, that habit of humility and sincerity, offering all respects to others. So that is the main part. So the first stage of sadhana is chanting. Now, what is the second stage of sadhana that we see? Second is reading Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. Now, Krishna is non-different from his name. He's also non-different from the knowledge that he's passed down. You know what most of us do is we'll probably read the Bhagavad Gita for 5-10 minutes or the Bhagavatam for 5-10 minutes, and then while reading, we might be very immersed. The second we close the book, we just go on with our lives. But that's not going to help. These books, they should not be treated as ordinary books, because the knowledge is so transcendental that one can be completely immersed in them. You should be completely absorbed in them. You should always be contemplating them. Even if you're continuously contemplating on the verses of Bhagavad Gita or the verses of Bhagavatam, it is very, very good, because when you're contemplating, you're almost in the spiritual world. You're in the spiritual world, because that is the reality. The Bhagavad Gita, it's like you're in a dark road and somebody puts those 48-watt lights and you can see the entire road, everything in minute, even the minute detail is very visible to you. That's what the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam is. In this age of Kali, in this age of darkness, where there's so much misinformation, when somebody shines the light of Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, and we read this, we are completely absorbed in that knowledge. We're always contemplating on the verses and the meaning behind the verses. We're always thinking of it. We are automatically doing smaran of Krishna. So that is the second state that's given. Third is spending time in a dham. Now this can mean two things. One is actually physically going to the dham. Dham is what? The birthplace of the Lord, like Vrindavan, Mathura. You can physically go to these places. But the dham, the other main thing about a dham is a place where Krishna is the center, the Lord is the center, and everything is revolving around the Lord. Therefore, it is said that even the temple is the dham, is equal to a dham. Why? Because in the temple, Krishna is the center and everything is happening around Krishna. The food that is being eaten is offered as prasadam. I've offered as bhoga to Krishna and we're taking it as prasadam. This deity worship, this kirtan where the names of Krishna is being chanted again and again. Similarly, even if you in your house, you make Krishna the center, or in your life you make Krishna the center, you're automatically in Vrindavan. Vrindavan does not have to be, you don't have to physically go to Vrindavan to be in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is the state of mind, the state of your nature, the state of your being. So if one is able to make Krishna the center of the life, they're automatically in Vrindavan. Fourth is the association of Vaishnavas or association of pure devotees. When you're in the association of pure devotees, like Srila Prabhupada preached to hippies who were like completely in ignorance. They used to do all sorts of sinful activities. But just by being in association of Srila Prabhupada, by listening to his vacha, the words that he was saying, their hearts were so completely transformed that they became sannyasis and brahmacharis at such young age. They completely 360 degrees flipped their lives. They went on to be very spiritually successful, and are doing very well for themselves. They are initiating gurus and sannyasis, very renowned personalities. Why? Because they were in association of Vaishnava, a pure devotee. So that's why we should try to always be in association. They say that sadhu sangha, sadhu sangha, sadhu sangha. That's the only benediction that we have. In association of devotees, can also cultivate that spiritual thirst. We can drench our spiritual thirst when we are in the association of devotees. And association, we see how impactful it is. I knew a person who was a South Indian Brahmana when in India, and when we came to Australia, he was sharing his room with like all those typical party people, I call them. Like they used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, start smoking, start drinking. Were eating beef and they were going to nightclub and all. And this Brahmana who used to wear the Brahmanical thread, who was a pure vegetarian, didn't even have onion garlic, he removed his thread and he used to do also, he used to smoke, drink, eat beef. He used to do all of that. Why? Because just in 2 months of association, see the impact he had. His life had a complete decline. He lost his job, he lost his degree, and he was depressed because of how bad habits he had cultivated. But that can also work in the opposite way. If we are in association of pure devotees, people who are always hankering behind spiritual knowledge and spiritual success, we will naturally be able to cultivate that. That's why when we come to temple, we associate with other people who have the same sort of thirst, especially of our age. It's very, very beneficial to us, and that is very recommended. Then the last and not the least is worshipping the deity form of Krishna. Now Krishna, even though he's physically he's present in front of his pure devotees, people like us who are still trying to work our way, who are still trying to be qualified, we are in work in progress devotees. We're trying to make our way to finally reach the stage of pure devotion where we can understand Krishna. So Krishna, being merciful unto us, he comes in the form of a deity. So when we go to a temple and we see a deity, it's equal to seeing Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is non-different, like I said. So he is actually present in the form of deity. It's how the person takes an approach that he has a similar sort of reciprocation. You'll see in Vrindavan, and I have gone to Mayapur as well. In Mayapur, people actually talk to the deities. Tears start coming out of their eyes. They have such serious and personal relationship with the deities because the deities talk to them. But at the same time, if you go and you're arrogant and ignorant and you say, oh, these are just pieces of marble, then Krishna will reciprocate with you in the same way. Krishna reciprocates with you the way you approach him. So if you approach him with love and devotion, Krishna will also do the same. But if you go with arrogance, then Krishna will not bother to even show him. Why does he have to waste time with you? Krishna will rather give that sort of realization to somebody who's actually making an effort, somebody who has some sort of humility and sincerity. If you're just proud of your birth, that oh, I'm a Brahmana, or oh, I'm a master's in science, and henceforth I am very knowledgeable and I know everything about God, forget about it. You're just going to be an illusion, because Lord is covered by his yoga maya. But if you are sincere and you're humble, you say, my Lord, I can't chant 16 rounds, but I'm genuinely trying very hard. I'm trying to do as many. I can do like 4 or 5, but I'm trying to do it very sincerely. The Lord will give you all the benediction. You will yourself see that the Lord is reciprocating with you. And then we reach a stage which is the most beautiful part of human life. That is, Krishna is no longer an idea. Krishna is no longer a concept. Religion is not some sort of tradition we do. We develop that into a pure relationship with Lord. We actually have a deep, meaningful relationship with the Lord, and we see that Lord's hand is in our lives throughout 24/7. Every instance that comes into our life, we see it in as a in the lens of gratitude, because we see that there is Krishna's hand. We'll see Krishna's hand in everything. That's why, when Prabhupada was asked that you are so successful, you have been able to open 108 temples in America in just such a short time, even though you're 70 years plus. How did you do all of that? And usually you'll see, like, if there were material people, they used to be very proud. Oh, hard work, determination, and I did it. Yeah. But Prabhupada, tears started coming out of his eyes, and he said, this was all because of the mercy of Krishna and my Guru Maharaj. And that is what we see. Pure devotees are always humble. They never see themselves as qualified, and they're always in the state of gratitude. And last but not least, they're in the form, they are always self-satisfied. They're always peaceful, because what they're looking for, the Lord gives it to them. When you approach the Lord, all the pleasures, because again, like it's given, Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. So the pleasure that people are so desperately hankering for, the Lord offers it to you, offers it to a pure devotee who develops a personal relationship with the Lord. And when you develop a personal relationship with your Lord, it makes your life, this human life, very cherished, your human life very successful, and your human life at the end very blissful, full of ananda. Not like these rascal learned scientists and learned scholars who say that, oh, you're actually a bunch of atoms and molecules that are just coming together and this and that. And somehow when you see other human beings as a bunch of atoms, then your nature also becomes like that. I'll give you an example. This might be a very disturbing story, but nevertheless I thought this is important to share. There was a mother who had kept her baby in the airport, those baby dressing areas where they change the baby's diaper. So she kept it, and then she had to immediately go out or something. And when she came back, her baby was disappeared. She couldn't find her baby, and she was very worried. And she spoke to the airport authorities, and she was in complete distress. They found that same baby, like the in some different airport, where the baby was thrown in a dustbin. His body was cut open, the internal organs were removed, and somebody, basically a drug dealer, had tried to smuggle drugs. So he cut open the organs of the baby, removed them, put in drugs, and he smuggled the drugs from one country to the other. And once he was done, he just threw the baby in the dustbin. This is what happens when you start seeing other living beings as nothing but atoms and molecules that somehow just produce. This is a tragedy which is going on in today's time. In today's time, we see, oh, I'm hungry, let me cut off the head of a chicken and eat it. That's how degraded we have become. We don't see people as people anymore. We just try to see how we can profit from this person. Even relationships have become like that. It's like two people trying to use each other. How can I enjoy this person's body? How can I enjoy that person's body? That's why relationships are so short-lived. In our grandparents' time, a marriage means eternal. From the day you got married at usually a young age to till the time of death, you were married. In today's time, in 6 months, you'll see people are getting divorced, 3 4 marriages. There's one person in my office whose father has been married 11 times. Imagine, 11 times. Why? Because we don't see people as people anymore. We see them as objects of enjoyment. How can we enjoy from this person? How can we enjoy from this thing? How can I drink alcohol and feel enjoyment? We're always hankering. Hence, it is important to understand that our objective of this human life is to understand God, and everything that we've got in this life is nothing but instruments through which we can see God. We should see God in every person. We should see God in everything. We should see God in every opportunity. We should even see God in all the distresses, because the Lord, it's given, like when in the scriptures, when the Lord wants to bestow special mercy onto someone, he takes everything away from them. If some Lord takes everything away from you, that means the Lord is giving you special mercy, because when Lord takes everything away from you, you have no other choice but to think of the Lord constantly. There was one story that Gancham Prabhu was telling us, where the Narad Muni was passing through a village, and he saw a very rich merchant, and this merchant was had like thousands of cows, and he was very wealthy, but he was a Vaishnava. He used to, whatever money he used to give, at least 60 to 70% used to go in charity. He used to do whatever money he had, he used to put it for the welfare of other people. And he was a very hardcore devotee of the Lord. He used to always use his money for the service of the Lord. Narad Muni saw him, and he took note. Then he went slightly ahead. He saw a small hut where there was an old lady with just one cow, and she was somehow surviving. She was very frail, old, weak, had no money, completely in poverty, was barely making money from to make her day end. But she was very satisfied. Why? Because she was a very hardcore devotee of the Lord. She used to always think about the Lord. So Narad Muni went to Vishnu, and he told that there are your two devotees. One is this rich merchant, and one is this lady. Please give them some sort of blessing, some sort of benediction. So Krishna or Vishnu gave them the blessing. And when Narad Muni went back, he saw that the rich merchant, whatever money he had got twice double the amount of wealth. He was making double the amount of wealth that he usually made. So Narad Muni said, "Wow, look at my Lord. He's so merciful that he's given this sort of mercy to this person." But he went to the other old lady. He saw that her house had been burned down or destroyed during a storm, and her cow had died off. She literally had nothing. So Narad Muni was very confused. He went back to Vishnu and he asked that, what is this? Like, this lady is so dedicated. Every moment of her life she spent to worship you. Then why have you done this? Why have you taken her house and her cow and everything away from her? And Narayan replies that, see, this rich man, he was remembering me through his service of money. When he was making money, he was thinking, how can I put this in service in the Lord? Hence he was always contemplating and thinking about me, and absorbed in the thoughts of me, in his transaction, in business transaction. Hence, if I gave him more money, that would just help him in his spiritual practice, or his him able to think about me or do my smaran more. And for this old lady, now that she has nothing, if I would have given her material benefit, she would have like neglected me, and she would have now got more, her mind would be more absorbed on, oh, how can I handle these material things. But when I took away even the small things that she had no choice but to constantly stay in my memory. I was the only sort of benediction that she had. And why did the Lord do this? Because the Lord himself says in the Bhagavad Gita that one who remembers me, who constantly thinks about me, who's always doing smaran of me, he at the time of death attains my abode without doubt. He is freed from this cycle of birth and death. So all of us are going through the cycle of birth and death, and just by remembering the Lord and his pastimes and his chanting his holy name, serving his duty, by doing all of these sadhana, these eternal practices, we will definitely be free from this bondage of birth and death, from this material bondage, and the Lord will himself be present to us. We will be able to perceive it. We can literally see this in so many devotees who have such personal relationship with the Lord. So given the time, I think I should conclude. If you have any questions, any doubts, I'm happy to hear. Megha, Priyansh, Priya, any questions? Tapendra, if you have any questions, I think you have my WhatsApp number. So after work, you can just send me a message. Yeah, because you've just messaged me that you're at work. So yeah, if you, whenever you have time, you can message me. Otherwise, anyone else has doubt? Priyansh, Priya, Megha, all good?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for the class, Prabhu. Yeah, just some good concepts that you discussed, which, yeah, some good like thought starters
Thank you.
to contemplate over.
Yes. So yeah, just the keynotes from this class: work on something, your eternal wealth, which is your sadhana, and that you can do by basic, like it's very easy in this age, chanting, reading, and really doing it with love and devotion and with sincerity. That's the main thing. And in that form, even though the Lord is omnipresent, he is physically present in, to some people, to his devotees, and non-present to people who are not his devotees. one last story I'll end with, that Prahlad Maharaj, who was a pure devotee of Lord, he saw the Lord everywhere. When Hiranyakashipu, his demoniac father, was trying to constantly say that, what is this, why you always chanting these names of Vishnu, and why you always trying to say that Vishnu is the supreme Lord, where is he? If Lord is everywhere, is he in this palace? And Prahlada was so absorbed in the thoughts of Vishnu, he said, yes, of course he's in this palace. He said, is he in this pillar? He said, yes, of course he's in the pillar. And the second because Prahlad could almost see Narsingha Dev in the pillar, and the second he saw that, Vishnu immediately appeared. Narsingha Dev is the only incarnation of the Lord who didn't have a material birth like Krishna and all. Even though Krishna wasn't born, he descended, but still he went through the process of coming in a mother's womb and then growing up, and he, for the sake of general speculators, he showed that he had a birth. But Dev instantly just appeared because of his cry of the pure devotee. So that shows you the difference, that Prahlada and Hiranyakashipu, they were on the same platform, but they had different lens. One could see the Lord in everything, and the other was just too absorbed in material gains. And that's why at the end he lost his life because of that. So, yep. I hope if there's any corrections or any mistakes that I made, I please ask for your forgiveness, and you can correct me on message or anything that if you thought that I missed out on some points. With that, I will conclude today's class. Thank you all for joining. Next week, I will share the verse. So if you're able to join, what I'll do is I'll share the verse a couple of days before we start the class. So you can just have a read through. So next class, we can do more of a discussion where you guys can also share more of your, realizations and thoughts, and then we can go on from there. All right. Thank you so much. You can unmute, say Hare Krishna and log off. Really appreciate all of you joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.